Today I'd like to talk about where Francisco Tarrega lived at the time he was going to the conservatory in Madrid, the Real Conservatorio. In 1877 he was 25 years old, and he was staying at Casa de la Troya at Jesus y Maria 27. And at the same time, we have guitar makers on that street, across the street, down the street, up the street. We had Blvd. I've got a Blvd guitar we did a video a couple weeks ago on, made in 1884. And earlier in the 19th century, Manuel Hielo worked at Jesus y Maria 32, and that was at the time 1822. He had Juan Ventanilla until 1869. Later in the 19th century, we had Miguel Nieto y Ureña, who was there in 1879, inherited the shop from his father, and that was at Jesus y Maria 32 as well, the old Yellow shop from 50 years previous. And as we got into the 20th century, Arcángel Fernandez had a shop at Jesus y Maria 26. Manuel Rodriguez worked there in 1957 and moved to Los Angeles in 1959. And Marcelina Lopez Nieto had a shop at Jesus y Maria 34. I got the information about the location of where Francisco Tarrega lived from the Emilio Pujol biography. This biography was initially printed in 1960. This is a 1978 edition, still available, very affordable. It was retyped by Albert Ponce, known guitarist and teacher in Europe. And also it mentions in the same page that Jose Martin Toboso lived at this same pension, a boarding house, at Jesus y Maria 27. Jose Martinez Toboso was a guitarist who worked with Carlos Garcia Tolsa with the Estudiantina Figaro, which traveled to South America and eventually disbanded in 1885. That's covered in my annotations for the history of the classical guitar in Argentina, 1822 to 2000. And Toboso owned an 11-string Taurus guitar, and a lot of interesting information. A half a mile from where this Jesus y Maria Street is Cava Baja, where Manuel Ramirez had his shop decades later, actually about a decade after Tarrega was at the Real Conservatorio. I find a list of 14 guitar makers from my index for the Buela and the Spanish guitar that I did from Jose Romanius' book. And we find that Alejo Jorge Martin was at Cava Baja 24, Madrid, in 1863. This is a area of a street with 14 guitar makers on it, much like Cuesta Gomeres in Granada had a dozen guitar makers, still has a dozen guitar makers on it. But this is just over a half mile away from Jesus y Maria. So you look at within a half mile area of Madrid, we have almost 20 guitar makers in the 19th century. We have Benito Jorge Olias at Cava Baja 24, number 24. Blas Lopez at the same address, quite a bit earlier. 1851. He was in 1881. Francisco Lopez Verde took over the shop, but in 1879, roughly the same time, Francisco Tarrega could have walked into these guitar shops. He lived across the street from a guitar shop, as well as I mentioned. He had guitar shops that were up and down the street, but he was only a half-mile away from the Cava Baja calle. We have Jose Martin at the same address. After 1839, we have Enrique Palme Alvarez, Cava Baja 10, 1886 to 1888. We have Jose Simon Ramirez II. Let me see, not him, but his uncle. Manuel Ramirez was at that Cava Baja 24 from 1887 to 1888. And we have Nicolas Royo at Cava Baja from 1840 onward. Cava Baja 24, same address, possibly same building, possibly a newer building. There we have Mariano Tarin after 1820. Have it at the Cava Baja address. Francisco Viudas, Cava Baja 10 in the 1884, 1888. We have Valentin Viudas, who hired Santos Hernandez before he went to work for Rafael Ortega from Granada, who had moved to Madrid. I've said there's a lot of stuff out on the internet that's not necessarily correct. It's not bad meaning to share these details, but people say that, Santos went to Granada to study with Jose Ortega, but it was actually Rafael Ortega. I've seen the guitar label. And so Valentin Viudas was at Cava Baja 32 and 33, but that was after the period when Santos worked for him. That was 1904, 1905. When Santos worked for Valentin Viudas, 1890, he was at Calle Toledo 34. And we have Silverio Briseño from 1822 at Cava Baja 24. And Francisco Gonzalez, the well-known guitar maker who won awards in expositions. 1867 Paris exposition, he won a bronze medal. And he was at Cava Baja 6 from 1851 onward. I have a listing from the trade books. These are like size of a phone book. Anawario General, a general listing of all people in the various trades. This is showing guitar makers, guitar string makers, and this is from 1861. For string makers, we have Blas Lopez on Ribera de Cortadores. We have Eladio Verdi, One Door Away. We have Julian Alvarez on Ventosa. And then the guitar and bandoria makers, we have Felix Rojero, Bastero 3. We have Benito Campo, well-known guitar maker, at Cadiz 16. And then we have Benito Jorge, who I already mentioned, Cava Baja 24. He made guitars, made strings, bass strings specifically. We have Gregorio Caracedo at Cruz 42. He was on the same street as Francisco Gonzalez, about 1848, which I discussed in an earlier video from a couple months ago. We have Pedro Fernandez at San Damaso 5. We have Jose Me Seguro at San Millán, 4. We have Manuel Nieto at Santa Isabel, father of Manuel Nieto y Ureña. And we have Jose Menendez at Calle Toledo, 30. And we have Francisco Gonzalez at Calle Toledo, 40, which happens to be the same address I just gave you. Decades later, we have Valentin Viudas at Calle 34. I goofed on that. And here it says, in this establishment you will find an abundant supply of guitars constructed in the greatest care and taste of the day. Among these qualified works of distinguished and intelligent works, these are for whom have received approval. We have the respect and form and voices that are distinct, believing that the owner of the instrument will find where he is known up until today, following the demonstrated the results obtained in verified practices of the public by profesores distinguidos, distinguished professors, and by the spontaneous eulogies that are dispensed to the press, newspapers, diarios, daily newspapers, as well as the works that are presented in the exposition. Fábrica and Depósito de Guitarras, a workshop and warehouse of guitars of different prices from 20 reales to 10,000 reales, an enormous amount of money. Francisco Gonzalez. That's the first time I've ever translated Spanish on camera. I spoke the language for 35 years. I was on morning talk show KDTV here in 1991, day after the Super Bowl, and complimented on my perfect speaking skills at the time. Raul Calendres, who was the host, said, "Si necesitas tener sus guitarras reparadas, llama Randy porque se habla español perfectamente." That means if you need your guitars repaired, call Randy. He speaks perfect Spanish. We have a large Hispanic community here in San Jose, California, 50 miles from San Francisco.